Hi guys, and welcome to this week's episode of the In the Hub podcast, brought to you by Playbox Technology UK. Today, I'll be speaking with Roy Callow, Technical Manager and Company Director of Nutrimedia. Roy's had an incredible 20 years of working in the broadcasting industry, specialising in technical consultancy, management and planning for some of the world's most exciting television productions. Hope you enjoy. So, welcome to the In the Hub podcast, Roy. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Getting through the year of lockdown as it has been, and looking forward to getting back to some sort of normality, whatever that may be in the future.
Oh no, I completely agree with it. I think, the end is in sight, basically, isn't there? There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of learning processes within our industry, and it's sort of emphasised more things like remote production as we move forward. So it's been a good learning curve for everybody, hopefully now we can start to move forward, as you say, and sort of make it part of our day-to-day life. But with the ability to actually be able to socialise again.
Yeah, that's the dream, isn't it? We're going to get stuck into a lot more of that and how COVID has affected our industry. So if we're all good to go ahead then, Roy, I think we'll just get stuck into the questions.
Absolutely, yep.
Awesome. So, Roy, before we start on the kind of main bulk of the questions, for anyone who might not already know, could you just fill us in on how you got started in the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, so I was always interested in film and TV from a school age. For some reason, it just clicked. I was very interested, and my education path as I left school, I went straight into Bromley Technical College, which had a sort of an outline. It was an engineering course, but it was an outline sort of a lead into broadcast engineering, and within that space, we actually did day release at Ravensbourne College, which obviously then got me moving into Ravensbourne College. And prior to Ravensbourne offering degree level courses, so I went on to do the HND, and looked at my future ahead, and had a large interest in the outside broadcast space, and that's where I ended up.
So yeah, it's kind of always been at the forefront of your mind then. Was there, any other careers that you thought about going into, or was it always going to be, media?
It was always, media was, obviously when I started out in the industry, it was very much, it was very much engineering broadcast and operational broadcast, and obviously the creativity and the thought of obviously all singing and all dancing, one person doing the lot was just not out there at the time. I had a very, my interest was more in the creative side, but once I got into the engineering side of things, I was very much more interested in that, and I think it sort of stemmed from my parents and my older brother. They was all in the engineering across different sectors, none of them in the broadcast sector. And I've always been quite interested in tech, so that was kind of leading me in that direction. I think the only other thing I was interested in at the time, but as a school child, you don't sort of realise the implications, and that was air traffic control for some reason, which I still escapes me to this day.
So it's almost like the step away from being a pilot, isn't it? Basically,
absolutely.
So I know we briefly talked about COVID and its impact on our industry in particular. So what has the last year looked like for productions in the UK and abroad for you?
It's been abroad has very much been non-existent. Obviously, I've been involved over the last few years with ITV in particular, but several other production companies in large-scale reality format shows. Obviously, most of those were put on hold as soon as the COVID times came along. We had lots of different elements to look at, and there was a few shows that obviously could make it in the UK, and that's effectively where my work migrated. So from spending most of my year out the country, traveling globally, I was obviously looking back into productions in the UK, working in a very careful, sanitized state. I did actually come home just before all the lockdowns started. So as COVID started becoming a reality at the beginning of last year, 2020, I was actually working out in South Africa, and there was a small kind of virus outbreak there. Just a sort of a neurovirus type outbreak. So we was very careful out there anyway, and we was very sort of measured, having the sanitizing your hands almost all the time, and not having sort of social contact as such. So it wasn't new to us. We arrived home and everybody was talking about social distancing and sanitizing and washing your hands and this, that, the other. And we'd been doing that for pretty much the start of that year anyway. So from the January, we'd been working on that.
Yeah, it's like you said, it was. I'm happy that you were able to obviously come home before it all kicked off. And there wasn't any scrambling about trying to finish off productions, before travel bans and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think my family were very happy about that as well.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I mean, and obviously with the previous year, I was obviously quite lucky. There was a team of professionals that I work with regularly, a lot of colleagues, and they could foresee the production. So yeah, we started early on looking at ways and means around of being able to get content to air during lockdown times.
So if we just track back to 2018, Roy, and I know it feels like a decade ago, basically. So obviously you've done quite a lot of work with the I'm a Celebrity kind of programming, and obviously the offshoot that's based out in Australia. And I read up on a kind of news article, a news story from out there about 10 of the cameras on that production blacking out over the course of a few days. And then, of course, as I was kind of reading down, you find out it was a porcupine that had chewed through cables or something like that. And I just kind of wanted to spin that and ask you, what's your immediate reaction when things go technically wrong? How do you stay composed in these kind of situations?
Well, I think firstly, I'm amazed you found that story. That's that was research, right? It seems like a long time ago, that 2018. I mean, effectively, the Australian network 10 took the I'm a Celebrity format and have run with it since 2015, I think it is, in a South African environment, which I was involved at the beginning of obviously the technical and what the whole show set up really. This particular incident, it was quite late at night. I'd finished my shift. I was normally on the morning shift, which was obviously TX back in Australia. So to get a call to say that there was 10 cameras down, and obviously that there was quite a panic within the engineering team to try and work out what the problem was. Yeah, we quickly, the guys within the team ascertained that it had to be a fibre because of the sources that had gone down. Luckily, obviously, we always insist upon resilience, redundancy, and spares. So that's exactly why you do that process. So it was quite a stressful process for around about an hour and a half, but people got it quite quickly up and running. It took about 2 days actually to find where the cable was broke, and and another day of the local rangers with their little animal cameras, the IR cameras and things, and we found that the porcupine had kept going back to actually chew through the root of a tree. Apparently it's their favorite food, and the cable just happened to be running past it. So it wasn't malicious from the porcupine's point of view. He was just looking for a nice meal, and just the cable just happened to be in the way. So
yeah.
When things like that do go technically wrong, obviously you do have to keep a cool head. In the sort of senior management position, you have to be the person that can, if you like, keep the production, steer the ship. So
yes,
the engineers are there to do their job, and the editorial, the creatives, the directors, that they're all there to do their job, and you're there to ensure that whilst they're getting as much information as possible, they are not putting too much pressure on the technical team that are trying in the background to make sure that ship is still running smoothly. I like to my role. I like to kind of, if you like, compare with a swan. So on the surface, you're you're nice and elegant and just floating along, and everything is fine. And underneath, sometimes you might be paddling away, keeping those technical team very much motivated to get to the root of the problem.
Yeah, I love that comparison. And obviously, with COVID and everything that went on, well, I'm a Celebrity. I'm guessing it got taken to Wales, didn't it? So a little bit closer to home. And I guess it kind of went from porcupines to, well, sheep, basically, I guess.
We was quite fortunate. There were no sheep. We did have an early incident which we put down to probably a badger. Again,
okay.
One of the cable runs happened to pass, look like a run through the golf course from the badgers. So obviously they'd got caught up and chewed through a cable. But that was, again, redundancy, resilience, spares. Can never emphasize enough on a project. You ensure you have that. And in fact, on the Wales project last year, I always take a smaller mixer along, just as again, going back to being in Australia for many years and in a remote location, if your transmission mixer fails, then you have no backup. So we always take along a smaller, not really a lot less complicated mixer, and it actually came into its own last year in Wales when our mixer failed a couple of hours before going on air, and we managed to get a show to air, which obviously outside of the production, nobody would have even realised that we was running on a much smaller, less complicated system, which is a DR system, disaster recovery system, but it done its job. So
yeah, it's nice to hear, with all your kind of experience and know-how, that you still place a lot of importance in that kind of those backups, basically. It's good to hear that.
Yes, yeah. As I say, I always emphasise. I've always sort of grown up with the old school, if you like, of backups and redundancies and spares, but you have to ensure you do have that resilience, especially in the live environment. If you don't have that, then that's a lot of non-air time.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, just moving alongside that, then it's quite a tough question, but has there been a kind of particular highlight project that you've worked on, or projects that you've worked on in your career?
That is always the most difficult question. People always ask you, amongst the highlight project, or the highlight person you've met, or whatever. And
yeah, I don't like singling out, like making people singling out favourites and stuff like that either. That's why I always say, if there's a certain amount of projects, like a multiple projects.
Well, every project there is obviously a self sense of satisfaction. Once that project has been delivered, every production, every project, the satisfaction in seeing a delivery, the successful delivery, and the satisfaction of seeing the teams that have worked tirelessly to put those projects together. It's always, for me, it's always about the teams and working with the teams. And I love working with the different teams and working to different workflows. But yeah, I think if I had to name one, it would be probably the Super Saturday in the London Olympics in 2012. I was actually working for a larger company back then, and had I was the obviously technical director of the company, and we had quite a few project managers looking after several broadcasters within the IBC, the International Broadcast Centre. I'd been over to check up on those project managers, have my normal daily meetings, and work through making sure there was no issues with the clients. A couple of them finished their shift, and we headed over to the media seats, as everybody complained about during the London 2012. We had those passes to get into those seats, and we was quite lucky to see the girls win a gold in the Velodrome, and then head into the stadium to see the Jessica Ennis, Greg Rutherford, and Mo Farah golds. So of the six, four of the 6 golds on that Super Saturday, we managed to be in the right place at the right time.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was, so that's always a memory, I think. But that's, as I say, that was having the access as opposed to the projects themselves, which again were very big, very cumbersome projects, but very satisfying delivering them at the end.
Does every project produce kind of new challenges for you? Does technical management in broadcasting and management of productions, does that aspect ever get easier for you?
Not really. I'd like to say it does get easier in time. Obviously, experience does bring certain challenges, or make certain challenges easier. Obviously, with experience comes age, and with age comes less training in the newer systems, so you always have to keep yourself refreshed. I'm always learning and always willing to learn, because things are always, especially nowadays, moving at such a fast pace that you have to keep your finger 100%. On the pulse. A lot of people do say, in theory, it would be a copy and paste process for each production. For example, I've worked with the ITV team for many years on I'm a Celebrity, and you would think that would be just a copy and paste. Obviously, as the editorial changes, as the formats change slightly, that does encompass changes in certain technical elements. So you do have to kind of change with the brief, if you like, of the format of the editorial. But I thought pretty much I'd seen most of those challenges around the globe, and then including sort of visiting certain countries, certain with less established setups, and then obviously COVID struck, and that made a completely new workflow for everybody involved in our industry. More process when you are on site, down to designing where people sit to ensure social distancing, screens, everything from talkback systems and headsets and button pushing and everything that has to be sanitized. You have to sort of work through plans with all that. There's certain productions now where they'll have a sort of a day and a night shift, sanitize that control room, so you go from one control room to two control rooms, just because obviously they'll go to commercial break and then they'll throw to the next control room, so you cannot spend 20 minutes cleaning.
Honestly, it's some of those things you don't think about, and it's that having to clean everything, make sure everything's clean for the next people, and social distance in your own productions.
Absolutely. And in a live environment, that then involves obviously switching from one production gallery, if you like, to a second one, so that's all you're switching back down the lines to transmission as well, and ensuring that both circuits are lined up prior to the switching. So it's COVID has brought its fair amount of challenges, but then if life was boring, then you'd be looking for another challenge.
Exactly. I think that rings true, to be fair. And I think this, like you were saying, this year really has posed its own new challenges. So, Roy, just to move on to your company, Nutrimedia, for anyone who might not already know what you guys are all about, could you just tell us a bit more about it?
So basically, Nutrimedia we created last year, during lockdown. There were a lot of sort of smaller projects, shoots going on, where people was trying to get content, or were trying to get content to obviously to air, everything from fillers, small interviews, just shooting links for certain major shows, and everyone was looking for different solutions. It did catch the whole industry on the hop, even though we'd all been talking remote production for many years. Nobody was really that geared up for everybody to go remote, and nobody was geared up for everybody to do it from home.
Exactly.
Remote didn't necessarily mean from home.
Yeah.
So we created Nutrimedia. There was lots of requests coming in quite quickly, and there was a few of us trying to sort of funnel this workflows, or these different workflows, and there was no kind of one-stop shop. Normally, as a technical manager, I'll work in hand with as a consultant with the production company, and we'll work with certain facilities providers to get the facilities we need. We were struggling to be able to get that quickly turned around, and there was a lot of time constraints as well. A lot of the productions that were coming in were obviously wanting to turn things around quite quickly because there was no idea how long lockdown would last, and a lot of the content was very topical to now, and everyone was fast running out of content. So we started up Nutree. We started up with the sort of mobile phone solution records, which sounds quite simple, and it was quite simple to start with, but it kind of grew. Obviously they wanted talent at home to be able to record and upload videos. It's amazing how many people maybe aren't that technical. So
yes,
we worked on
a lot of this happened.
Exactly. So we worked on a sort of a remote software solution where we had our technicians, our engineers at home, dialed into those particular mobile phones. They could control the settings of the camera setup. They could obviously then set it up to upload automatically as well. So we had we'd set up target drives in cloud folders, and then the edit could see that appear, and they could take it as soon as it had uploaded. They could start taking that content and editing it. So it was a quick sort of turnaround. Obviously, people then do start looking at the phones can shoot 4K and they can do this and can do that. You do start becoming limited with bandwidth from people's homes. We obviously did run everything at that time. It was more 4G than 5G. So we did run everything 4G backup as well. But obviously, if you're trying to upload several hours of video on a 4G connection from a mobile phone, it's going
to run into a few issues.
It's not going to be quick turnaround. So we shot with ITV Drama a couple of 15-minute drama series of isolation stories and unsaid stories. It was very much social distancing, lockdown conditions. Everything obviously turned up on their doorstep, sanitized. A quick sort of workshop with the cast members' families, who then used the facilities we provided to shoot the productions with the entire drama team on Zoom or Zoom type platforms, working together with obviously a remote intercom system as well, so they could go off screen. The Zoom become the floor, basically. The director and everybody else was on the floor. Whoever didn't need to talk to the talent would then obviously mute themselves, but everybody could see, hear, know what was going on. And with the cameras, we could share them within the Zoom as well, so they could obviously see the whole process being filmed as well. So it was quite a convoluted process to get going, but once we got it going, it was quite successful. And there are some really good videos out there actually of obviously of isolation stories. There's a behind the scenes as well on the hub, which I do actually feature in. So
there you go. Yeah, just what an incredibly kind of unique production that was, and one that obviously no one would ever think about that kind of happening before COVID, and I've got a lot of respect for that production. I think it's brilliant how that was all managed and done, like you said, through family members essentially taking on the role as the crew, and managing all that from there. Then obviously down to the support that you guys gave them as well, and I think that was brilliant.
Absolutely. And then another production we did work on, a couple got married at home, and they actually they got married at home. We had a host in another venue, and who officiated, and then the whole family all came in via platforms as well. This program aired on Channel 4 in May, and again, it was a collaboration of a few companies there. So we brought in a company that provided us with 5G connectivity in the house, because they had hardly any internet, and obviously there was no satellite trucks or anything like that. That was a small OB. That was during lockdown, a small OB with 4 transit-sized vans with obviously a person in each, and that was the entire crew. So again, no production on site. Everything was remotely managed across different conference platforms. And then with that, we had another company in Manchester that brought in those conference platforms, so we could display a large screen of an entire wedding congregation. And then they streamed another couple of feeds. So I think we had 4 incoming feeds on that one, all across 5G, which we could then cut to obviously the screen, so we could have full screen of say the bride's mother and father, delivering a message live and everything else. And then obviously we streamed it back out on the 5G to the entire wedding congregation, plus obviously the whole editorial team that were all sat at home monitoring and feeding back and giving their notes on what needed to be done. So and within that, we obviously also supplied a lot of the self-shooting kits in the build-up, so the story of the build-up to the wedding. We had mobile phone kits going everywhere, and again a cloud-based platform that as they finished their little messages, it hit the cloud and they pulled it straight into the show. So lots of collaboration and lots of different projects.
I mean, again, another production that I just could not have foreseen before all this COVID stuff kind of hit. That's it sounds brilliant though. It really does. And then Roy, this is a question we ask at the end of every podcast. And we usually try and ask guests to kind of keep it to one word if possible. But what do you envision for the future of the broadcasting industry?
Can I use 2 words?
Ooh. That would be a first for this podcast. Go ahead, and we'll see if we can kind of get it into one word. But we do ask guests to kind of expand on it afterwards. So yeah, it should be fine.
Well, it's 2 words. It's remote production.
I'll allow it, Roy. I'll allow it. That's fine.
I mean, remote production obviously it has been pushed to the forefront with the whole process of COVID and where we've all been over the last year. Obviously, we've not been able to travel abroad, and you look at it, every single show nowadays. All the whether it's the Prime Minister, whether it's an MP, whether it's a guest on a chat show, most people are all sat in possibly their pajamas on their sofa, being interviewed with their headsets or whatever, hoping that no one's going to burst through the door behind them. So,
that anxiety.
Obviously, that as I expanded on before, that came out of not being, I think, as prepared as we all thought we was for something like this to happen. Obviously, as time goes by and as more manufacturers invest heavily in the remote production side, obviously it will become a lot more a broadcast styley setup in future. I think we will see more of a lean towards smaller productions, perhaps having part on site but more off-site facilities, the supporting crews being able to monitor with SRT streams or conference platforms or whatever. But I do believe maybe the major online platforms not necessarily flying all their execs across to sort of sit in on a format show, maybe again with the right connectivity and the right monitoring, being able to make their assessments on the fly as they're cutting, as they're filming, as they're shooting. People being able to have more input from the outset that wouldn't necessarily be on set. Suddenly, you can push that along a lot better, a lot further. So, on saying that, there is a lot of the kind of conference platform fatigue with
a little bit. And I almost feel bad asking you to come on Zoom today, Roy, but I agree with that.
Just to finish off, we are I think still a long way from normal service resuming, and I think with certain productions, obviously some of the cost savings that can be seen of not sending a huge team out internationally, then I think maybe the old style of production has probably moved on now, and we will find a hybrid solution.
I completely agree with that, and the word I was looking out for was hybrid. I think Yeah, we've kind of almost realised the benefits, and I know a lot of companies were already taking on remote capabilities before this, but like you said, yeah, we've all almost kind of realised the benefits of it, and equally, a lot of people do miss that kind of travel aspect and stuff like that as well, don't they?
Absolutely.
So I think we will have that kind of hybrid meshing together.
And I think there is that, as you said, there's a lot of companies that sort of taken on the development within remote production and move forward quite quickly. And then there's a lot of companies that have kind of resisted. And I think some of that may be due to the fancy travel and things. Who knows? But yeah, there has been a lot of resistance in the past, but yeah, I think now it's highlighted that we have to move forward.
100%. No, I completely agree. So Roy, just to finish up on then, are there any kind of exciting projects in the pipeline for you or Nutrimedia that you can talk to us about today?
Unfortunately, I can't. And anything ongoing, obviously, with NDAs and things.
Yes,
but obviously the usual shows in the sort of the Roy Callow Nutrimedia portfolio are still ongoing, still discussion stages, still working through, how, what, where, why, and when on the development. I think a lot of people thought 2021 would just sort of roll back in normal. Obviously, I think 21 has probably been a little harsher to a certain degree than 20. At least with 20, we was told no, and that's it. Now everybody's trying to find their way around the different regulations and the varying regulations as you go internationally. So it's at the moment we are working with quite a few different production companies, just trying to work out the best way of delivering different productions, different commercials in different ways, basically.
So how can people best get in touch with you or Nutrimedia if they want to get in touch?
Look us up online. We're all social media animals nowadays, aren't we? So
we've got to be
anything in the mainstream social media platforms, we're on them as Nutrimedia. We will just keep obviously sharing our experiences, sharing our stories as we go along. If anyone does want to obviously drop us an email, then the info@nutri.media is the best contact to get us on. But otherwise, as I say, we're on the online platforms, and we're slowly but surely sharing our experiences and working along like everybody else to getting back to normal one day.
Yeah, it's good to hear you guys are obviously making the most of social media platforms as well. As quite a useful tool nowadays, really, isn't it?
You absolutely have to. Broadcast on the whole. The first thing you do when you're working with production companies is, the first question you ask is not how many cameras do you need, how many this, how many that, how many online team are we going to be working with, because they are the content hungry people.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I could kind of relate to that in a sense, and it's always on a search for content, basically.
Absolutely.
And you see it more and more with productions nowadays, don't you? That it's all about the clips on the social media. If it's ever getting live streamed to social media and stuff like that as well.
It's all about the engagement. Even if you look at the figures on any television program in the UK now, they always wait for the consolidated with all their kind of online platforms, and people watching it through different methods now. And I have teenage children myself and younger children, and given the opportunity of watching it on a small tablet or watching it on a large screen TV, they would still rather sit and watch it on a small tablet or their mobile phone. So, I don't understand personally.
I don't think I could ever watch a film on my phone. To be honest, it always has to go on the big screen, basically.
Absolutely. I mean,
so there's a few of us still left.
Well, if you look at when you used to travel with planes, and you'd always struggle to sit on that little. Well, unless obviously you wasn't in the back of the plane, but you'd always struggle to sit on the back of the seat, the headrest, and yet and I'm sure the younger generation would complain about those back of headrest monitors. However, they were quite happy to sit and watch it on a sort of a 7-inch, 5-inch screen on their mobile phone.
So. Yeah, there's some things I don't think we'll understand, Roy, but We've just got to get on with it. All right, well, thank you very much, Roy, for taking the time out and coming and speaking to us today. It's very much appreciated, and it was great to hear about some of the projects that you've been doing, some of the projects you've got coming up, and just what's going on in the kind of more technical aspects of the broadcasting industry.
Pleasure coming along, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me.